OnChain with Emin Gün Sirer.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of OnChain, and it's been a great fun ride recently following the ETF and the after effects of the ETF on the crypto space. And I think I'm talking to you, at least I'm recording this at a time when the entire space seems to be picking up even more momentum with every passing day. This is exactly as we expected with the ETF. There's a lot of excitement around at least Manhattan in digital assets of different kinds. So that's the backdrop, and it's a fantastic time to be coming back to you. There's a bunch of good news all across the crypto space in general. And but if I look around at the technical accomplishments, they are far and few in between. And the main one, the one that I'm excited the most about, is the one that's coming up. That's called the Durango update for Avalanche. This might seem like a small thing. We have these ABCD updates as we're now on the D1. It might seem like like something that other people also make a bunch of noise about. This is fundamentally different than what you might be used to. It's not a new little tiny tweak on chain. It's not something invisible behind the covers. What Durango brings is seamless interoperability across multiple chains. And that's a huge new enabler. So I can't wait to see the demos. I can't wait to see what the platform team will put together to showcase what Durango enables. Now, is this the end for interoperability? No, I think I would say this is somewhere, we're past the beginning, somewhere one of the big milestones in interoperability, but there's much more to do. And all of that is in the pipeline of interoperability, and operability across disparate chains. All of that is coming to Avalanche, and with that it brings to us the ability to create tokens for different purposes and to seamlessly use them in your own subnet as gas, and then to bring them back to the C chain and maybe use them as collateral, and then take them back to your chain and use them as whatever else they're supposed to do on your chain, whatever else your specific tokens are supposed to do there, and then bring them back to C chain and use them in other DeFi activities as well. So that's a big new enabler for us. You heard the vision of multiple chains many times, and once again I'll repeat: unlike Ethereum, unlike Solana, we are the only multi-chain system in the top 10. We're the most advanced one with I would say the most technically interesting features. So check that out when it goes live. And then otherwise, I think it's a time of staying put as the crypto space and watching the asset base grow, watching essentially growth take place across the globe for crypto and digital assets. So that's sort of where I'm coming from today. It's a glorious day in New York, and I have a very special guest today. And the bulk of the discussion today is going to center around NFTs and everything that sort of branches off of NFTs: community, growth, excitement, hype, and everything associated with, of course, in particular, in this case, it's going to be the Dokyo founder, Brando, who's going to tell us about the future of Dokyo and what he plans for it. So, Brando, welcome on board.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. So tell us a little bit about, so for people who may not have followed the NFT happenings on Avalanche, tell us a little bit about Dokyo. I always like to go into the technical stuff first, and then we'll pull back out and talk about you as a founder and your motivations, your values, and so forth. Well, let's understand, like, what is Dokyo?
Yeah, so Dokyo means courage in Japanese. And the way I found the name is I just went on Google and I'm like, what's the most important quality of any leader? And I realized it's like courage and grit. But ultimately, I was going for grit. So it's the ability to see fear and go through it anyways. So my goal was, how do I embody something like that into a collection and then empower other people with that? Because when it comes to NFTs, it's about having that emotional connection and empowering all the people that are part of it. So if it's the community is DeFi focused and they can have a face and they can show the world, hey, this is me as I show up. Of course, you have social status and all these other things, but we get into that in a bit. So Dokyo is a collaborative venture studio, and the goal is, it's like, think of it like a think tank of a collective of people that all share similar values. For us, it's around Japanese culture, and we did a few workshops together where it's like, okay, let's let's think of an idea together. Let's bring it to life as a collaborative. And then let's figure out ways where we can reward all the people that contributed. So think of a Kickstarter, but as a group. And so, of course, there's all these different nuances that come out of it where you have fashion and art and culture and building upon it. But the core of it all is ultimately, you're never alone. You're a legend. No heroes alone if you're amongst legends. And so embodying that courage where it's like, you'll see a lot of this narrative where it's like, you're strong, the matrix, this and that, the world is against you. You have to be very strong. But if you think about it, everybody that gets to a certain position, they get there with people. They get there with the people, the supporting, whether it's a teacher, an audience, or your friends. And so, yeah, our goal is to embody that and have a lot of fun as we do so.
That's amazing. So, I use a PFP that's from the Dokyo Collection these days, and I've loved it, and I love that aesthetic. And I think it's one of the few sort of Japanese aesthetic. So, and few NFT series based on the Japanese aesthetic. No.
Yeah, I would say a lot of these collections, what they do is like they'll find like an art, get inspired. For us, it was super important to be as authentic as possible. So we found in a studio in Japan. They didn't speak English, so we had to speak through translators for like 3 or 4 months, sometimes even more. And they were so critical. They would ask like this most specific details where we had to like go and like explain it, and then sometimes it didn't get explained, and it would come back a different thing, and it worked. Sometimes it didn't, and so through trial and error, our goal was to have this like feeling. And it's interesting because when we were shopping the art around, as like a lot of artists were like, oh, that's wrong. It should be like this, or this should be like this. And I think it's interesting because it has to feel right. Like when people look at the collection, like, hey, that looks different. That looks right. And I'm actually super happy that you went and you chose that the visionary one, which is one of my favorite masks as well. And I was like, this resonates. We're keeping this because we were going to take it out. And I'm like, no. There's something about this futuristic, like I can.
Are you serious? Like you were going to take out the PFP that I ultimately chose to use?
There's a few that made it, and I'm like, no. Like our team had to like decide which ones we liked, which ones we didn't like, and that was the whole process as well.
I thought I got the very best Dokyo, just so you know. But that's probably true of a lot of your Dokyo holders as well. I hope, right? That they believe they have the one that's just right for them. So, okay, tell me more about the concept. So. Courageous leaders, you're never alone if you're in your tribe. And so what else? Like what else does Dokyo represent?
Yeah, so I think just having these, when we were building the collection, there's a lot that goes into it that many, let's say, they don't like maybe lean into. And that's, okay, there's a rarity aspect where you have to have a certain number and percentages of each one. And so when you're building a collection, think of it like mini tribes within the big tribe. So let's say, even if you were to look at Avalanche as a whole, and then you have like different verticals, right? You have like your NFTs, you have your DeFi side, you have your institutional, and everybody's its own little tribe in a way that all connect. And so when you're doing a collection, think of it on like a micro level where I want like 60 to 70 masks for this type of specific mask. So then that group of people can then form, and there's enough people in there to make a fun little difference within each other. So for example, the hollow mask, a lot of people are like, oh, I love this one. We're going to bond our own little community around that. And if you can create that, doesn't mean it's going to stick because you never know going into it, but you create enough foundation of it where people are just going to choose. Like some of the non-rarest masks are now sought after because people just like them the most. And so you create this dynamic, and it's like almost like game theory. And if you can do it to a certain extent, you can create demand within the collection, outside the collection, and then so there's social status from like the outside looking in, but there's also social status within the tribe.
Right, exactly. That's interesting. I want to expand on that a tiny bit, but before then, I want to run something by you. So, like a lot of people, it took me a while to understand how or exactly why these NFT communities formed. What made some of them grow and get exciting, what's made some of them kind of just disappear and not find traction. And something that someone said to me that was insightful was, think of them like country club memberships. Don't think of them as pictures or PFPs, but think of them as communities across the globe that people will pay huge sums of money to participate in. And at the time, of course, I was struggling with the valuation for board ape yacht clubs or whatever BAYCs, and the people were paying multiple millions for these things, and so that's a lot of money. But once you see it as, oh, that's the kind of money that some people would pay to join a highly selective country club, that makes sense. Is that how you view it, or how do you view it?
Yeah. I think it's just the way that works, but the more pricey it gets, the harder the barrier of entry, and people value it more. And so the way we set up our community, like even in our Discord, and I'm going to just explain like my thinking of how I came to understand this as well, is when I used to be a barber for 15 years, and I had a barber shop, and I would always tell people, when you walk in the shop, you acknowledge everybody else. And then this borrowed credibility aspect where it's like you big up each other. So if I were to go out with you in public, and I introduce you and you introduce me, that's so much more powerful than us introducing ourselves, because it's like there's a level of borrowed credibility, and as like you are respected amongst your tribe. So you create this sort of dynamic, and I really truly believe that the quality of the members will just boost, and then people will then be like, okay, if I get in there, it doesn't guarantee that I'm going to have like all of these resources. What it's going to guarantee is that I can run into people, and maybe during regular casual conversation, you can find out if this person and you like anime, and then all of a sudden now you have a common interest. So you're increasing the odds from proximity. And it's like, if you're both part of the same tribe, you're going to be willing to listen a little bit more. For example, if someone really loves Avalanche and you love Avalanche, you're going to be more receptive to what they're saying, because they're building on your chain versus, another chain or whatever else. Like whatever it is, we're tribal by nature. And so it's like, these are like, think of them like little clubs within the bigger whole. And then it's like, why do you choose that chain? And those are all like different dynamics. But ultimately it's, I value who's in there. I value and then the narrative of like what it represents. And then if they represent it and they value it, now I'm getting the borrowed credibility from them by being part of that tribe. I've seen people's whole career shift in Web3 as soon as they join the right group. They'll change their PFP. All of a sudden, they have all the credibility. It's added. And then let's say the guy is a watch dealer. Who do you think he's selling his watches to? The whole club. Boom, his business took off. He's a car dealer. Like, okay, I got you. Let me walk you guys through to not make a mistake. All of a sudden, he builds. And so the whole tribe can then, think of it like a mind share map where everybody contributes. And then all of a sudden, everybody's an expert in every situation, and they can pull the resources when they need to.
Absolutely. So I've seen this time and time again, the groups that know how to cultivate the in-group behavior, the groups that actually build a nice community around whatever their chosen theme is, they're incredibly strong. So I watched recently, actually, I would say maybe in the last 6 or 9 months, there was someone who was part of an NFT. He held one NFT, I forgot which one it was, lost his entire collection, lost access to his wallet, lost everything, went from whatever he was at to zero. And it was his NFT crowd that got together and got him a replacement NFT to still be a member of that club, as well as replenish some of the capital he lost. Again, in Avalanche, we've had people who lost their savings because of mishandling their keys and so on, and the community came together in the early days to help people who were part of it. So that cultivate. So what have you done to cultivate that feeling of camaraderie, that whole club-like feeling, that community-like feeling? It's not just a collection of people. It's really something that's tighter than that, right?
Yeah. So there's multiple things that I think get overlooked. And the first one is the prep work. So we knew that we were going to launch this collection months before. And actually, it's a funny story, because I said, you know what, I'm going to get a Polaroid camera at Summit. And then at Summit, that was actually my first experience to be like, wow, there's a big culture here. That's not, because I was originally on Solana. And like we were like a hyperbolic time chamber of just 20 projects launching a day. It was very community, very just fast paced. And so coming here, I realized, okay, so there's an NFT world, there's a DeFi world, and they're not really super ingrained, because I guess the focus was more on the DeFi side, and then now it's like NFTs, and now you're starting to see them kind of come together. So during that period, when I got to Summit, I looked around, I'm like, okay, this is a very vibrant ecosystem. Like I felt like, okay, there's something here. And so we got a Polaroid camera, and I went up to everybody and I took a picture with them. And I said, okay, I'm going to get you in the Discord. We're going to have a chat. And I one by one white glove them into the community. some of them stuck, some of them, okay, this guy's putting the time and effort. And when it comes down to his hospitality. So actually you were walking out and that was the first time someone was like, hey, like, see you. And then one of my guys was like, you should get a picture with him. And then I run up to you and you're walking out with your guy. And I'm like, hey, let's take a picture. And then you turn around and then your guy like gets up and he's just like, hey. And he's like, and you're like, no, it's okay. And you grab the camera and we went to go take a selfie. And then you took the picture and there was no more film left. And we're all like, oh.
I remember this. Yeah. So my guy there is, of course, the security fellow that I had, and he's fantastic. And yes, I remember he tried to intervene, and then we tried to take a picture. And it was maybe the last day as I was walking out, but we ended up. Didn't somebody else take a picture with their cell phone? Then we got the selfie taken, no?
Yeah, I think someone took a picture, but the Polaroid.
Yeah, it wasn't became Polaroid a blank. Format. I know. That's too bad. Next, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish off where it's like, and then it doesn't stop, right? Then you launch the collection and you have your holders. And now it's like we have our Holo Club, which is like a little bit more boutique and it's the higher ticket item, the rarest masks. And so I'm like constantly asking them, hey, do you guys want whitelist for this? And what I notice is that trickles down. And so the leadership starts and then it goes to your team and then it goes to your biggest holders. But you obviously never forget about your wide holders, but it's also very difficult to say hi to everyone at the same time. Like for you, for example, right? You're in this position where it's like you comment on someone's post, it's like, holy shit, he commented. And so, but you can't comment on every single person that's in your post. So it's like a micro version of the whole chain, but it's a little one. And so it's like doing things the right way, empowering your people to then empower the people under them. And then it kind of just trickles down.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about the man behind the whole operation. So you have an interesting background that we were talking about right before the podcast started. So how did you find yourself? You mentioned that you ran a barbershop for 15 years, is what you said. So where did we start? And there was a Solana stint in there as well. And how did we end up on Avalanche? I'm very curious about that whole arc.
Yeah. So I started cutting hair when I was 14. Me and my buddy had like an older brother, and he was the coolest guy. He's cutting hair in his garage. All the cars were parked outside. He was socially. I want to try that. And so that turned into me being like full time around 16, 17. I would finish school, go right to work, and then I cut hair for years and worked my way up. And then around, I would say around 18, 19, my friend was like, hey, have you heard of like Monero and Bitcoin? It's going to be the future. So I used to cut hair and he used to pay me to go download the wallet, go through the whole process. So I had crypto, but I was too young to understand. Like we knew it was the future, but we just didn't know how it was going to be. And so that led to roughly around the ICO phase of ETH. And then I started getting involved and I got a couple like wins. And I'm like, okay, I round tripped everything because you just think that you're early and you never understand. And that led me to
round trip means you held it all the way to zero, back to zero.
I held it all the way up. I thought I was the top of the world. And then I stood on my balcony staring outside at the sun, just understanding like what I did and why I was greedy. And I started doing push-ups because I just didn't know what to do with like the level of energy of like you had this and now you don't. And yeah, that's a whole nother layer where I actually started educating people going through that. So I think it was a blessing, but in the moment it did not feel like a blessing. That's for sure.
I think everyone listening can empathize. So this is very common, right? It takes years to learn how to sell valuable things. So yeah, no, that's so okay. So tell us more. So there you are getting into Monero and Bitcoin. Then what?
And then so a few wins there, and then 2019 hits, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know if this is what I want to do anymore. It's been like roughly 15 years of cutting hair, and I decided to take a break. I cut off everything. I took about 8 months, no alcohol, no gluten, worked out every day, meditated every day, super strict, like got moved out of the country. And I just went into this, like, what do you want to do? And why are you so dependent on your successes? Like my self-worth was haircut, money. And so like, I started like learning that mindset, and I'm like, okay, how do I get out of that? And then also on top of that, I'll teach my family and everyone else around me. And so, so that was a lesson learned. And then I started my Twitter, and I said, you know what? NFTs remind me of tokens. They just have faces. It's the same thing. And so I started just educating on Twitter, and I'm like, I'm going to start telling everybody what I'm going for. And so I would call founders, I would reach out to them, and I would treat them like they're in my barber chair. So I would just have talk after talk with all these founders. Hey, is there any way I can help you? What's going on? What drives you? And then, okay, these guys are not serious. Or I would go on their Discord and I would ask funny questions just to see how the team would respond. And then I would make my analysis, and it was always pre-mint. It was never after. So it was kind of all fun. That turned into a group because I was just getting hundreds of DMs a day. And then I educated the group, and the goal of the group was to be a incubator. Mm-hmm. The goal was to be like, hey, we're going to help projects succeed. But then what we realized is we actually were just helping people succeed. So people would enter the group, they would learn about the space, and then that's how I actually met a few of the guys turned into Ava Labs employees. Some guys started working at Magic Eden. Some guys started working in opening their own project, because you never knew who's joining that group and what accolades they had. They just didn't know where to start. And so we created this hey, no one dumps on each other, no one swears. There was rules in this community. You want to be in this community, you're gonna hold yourself accountable. And if you do some stuff, you're getting banned. And it's your responsibility, no one else's. You do something. So we taught these lessons, and then people really were grateful for it. And then that's actually how I met Dom and the rest of the boys, because they're like, hey, how do we emulate that over here?
I see. So, and why Avalanche? So there was a switch from Solana to Avalanche. Tell us a little bit about what prompted you to find the Avalanche community as your home base.
Yeah, so I'm an advocate of going skating to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. And I'm not saying that it's always never gonna leave there. But I think there's markets for each thing. But what I realized is there's just there was this empty void of an opportunity. And I love the RWAs, I love the tokenization, I love the fact that there's brands that recognize it and use it. And it's removing the aspect where it's oh, we're using a subnet. No, we're just using our loyalty program. And I think that bridge, the wording of it is the friction. It's oh, this Web 2, Web 3, you have to explain it. All of a sudden, people have to learn both terms and they have to learn what they're doing. And then they're just oh, not for me. For example, gamers, right? A lot of gamers and artists, they were against NFTs because they're bad for the environment, because that just went viral. And then when finding an artist and trying to get an artist to come in and do a collection, because so many of them got burned in the past by bad actors, they're all nah, we're not touching it, even though it can empower them. And so I realized there's this little gap, not a gap there. And if we can become a flagship, at least acknowledge across, there's so much people and that will contribute in terms of that social club that never felt what it felt like to have being part of that social club. So it's okay, so you have these high quality people building amazing things, and they just never felt what it's like to be a part of one of those clubs. Yeah. It's just a matter of time before it happens. And so I was okay, how do we design it in a way where it can empower the chain itself while everyone is still doing what they're doing? It's not a one or the other. It's just a value add as icing on top. You're already on Twitter. You might as well have fun with it with another layer.
Yeah, no, this is there's so much that I want to ask you, given how much thought you've given to NFTs and where they're going. But here's a question that I've been sort of struggling with for some time. So at least this is my view, and it might be incorrect, but here's how I look at this. So I was around when people were building their own little microcomputers, right? You'd buy chips, and then you'd get a PCB, you'd solder it in there, and then you'd have this 8-bit computer that you could have at home, and you'd do things with it. It was really cool. And then suddenly, and there were a lot of people doing this, right? You'd go to a meetup or what have you, a gathering of electronics enthusiasts, and you just chat with them, and you'd be oh, I use this and that, whatever. You'd exchange tips. So those were the early days. And then people figured out how to use that technology to commercialize it, to commoditize it, to scale it up. And so then you have, I would say Apple is the culmination of that process. And in the end, you have this super sleek product group coming up with amazing products that anyone can use. And then, in the .com era, it started out with very basic services. Only a few people knew how to do it. People were building their crappy little websites, and suddenly people realized, I can make money. It explodes. NFTs, okay? If I look at NFT communities, it's mostly I would say, grassroots, right? It's organic. It's people who are enthusiasts, people who really love it, who are there for all the right reasons in the very earliest of days. And at the same time, I look around here in Manhattan, there are these huge brands. They would do anything. Like they would literally pay hundreds of dollars to get the kind of engagement that you got with Dokyo, right? So, what you're doing is something that they aspire to and don't know how to get at. And I don't know how those two things are going to converge. And I wonder if you've thought about it. Like, are NFTs forever in your mind, like something that you do in a sort of a grassroots basis? Or what's the future of commercialization? What happens when brands come in? They want to engage with NFTs. They want to engage with users. They want that passion from their users, in a way that they're not getting with Delta Point. What the hell is a Delta Point? Delta Point is an NFT, right? And if you hold enough of them, they let you fly for free. So they probably would kill to get that engagement, and they haven't done it yet. So how do you see those two universes colliding?
Yeah, so that's an amazing point. So what I think is happening here is a lot of these guys will just mint a membership pass that looks like a membership. Okay, that's like having a credit card, right? You're not gonna walk around with your credit card on your face and like be like, hey, like. So I think they're missing the human element. They're missing the emotional like connection to this, like to the tribe. And the bigger you get, the harder it is to keep it. So I think what's happening now is you'll see these big brands, they'll go and they'll buy the micro brands that are based off the influencers.
Yeah,
and they'll just own a bunch of them, and it'll be almost like a hedge against like, okay, we're going to start to like corner this, and this is what we want to do. And this, because they can't relate to this Gen Z, they can't relate to these newer people because they have their stockholders, this, that. So they have all these rules at the top, and they can't just go say what they want to say on Twitter because they can't. But these other smaller boutique brands that are already known for that can be subsidiaries of them. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to start to see this like infusion of like, once the art gets better, you got these like Apple headsets. People can choose how they want to show up. People like if you want to have this status, like I think what excites me a lot is like a passport type of thing where it's like you have if I go to a Hilton hotel or I go to like this area or this I fly here, being a member of this gets you access, and it's a white glove service. You don't need to go and do a bunch of I have to sign up this and open my wallet and do that. It's just a quick like, okay, I have this, I'm good to go. And it's going to be up to them to take care of these like boutique areas. And then I think eventually it's going to just be, I mean, maybe not. I know it's like there's that. I think the VR, the reason I don't like saying VR because I think it's just going to turn into what the world is with all these headsets. And I think we're living in a world where a lot of people becoming more self-conscious because they're so behind the screen a lot. And you're seeing like VTubers now becoming famous and no one knows what they look like because they can choose who they want to be. That's really big in Asia, but it hasn't come over here yet. And I think there's going to be an aha moment where it doesn't become weebish anymore. It just becomes like, oh, this is part of life. It's cool. And you can actually see that Apple's starting to slowly, when you watch their commercials, when they release their new items, it looks like you're watching it through the lens. Like even the actual film quality of like the way that they're showing their release for their items, it looks like you're literally wearing it. So they're already prepping your eyes and your audience to welcome it. And it's a matter of time before you start walking and everybody's wearing one, you know. hopefully dystopian world.
It's a bit dystopian, and I will attest to the addictive nature of this thing. So I haven't spent that much time. I've spent 15 minutes playing one game, Gunzilla, off the grid. Amazing. I'm totally addicted. I must.
Congrats, by the way. Congrats on that.
Thank you. It's coming out. I'm so excited, and I'm an NPC in that game. So if you want to come and whatever, hang out with me in the game, I'm there. I keep saying like very dramatic things. But this is how I discovered that I have an addictive personality. I played the game for like 15, 20 minutes, and I like have dreams about the game world. And similarly, I put on an AR mask maybe like 10 years ago at Cornell, one of the highest end units imaginable. It's a research unit, obviously a very heavy, bulky, not very good. But I ended up, like in 2 seconds, you end up doing funny stuff, right? I ended up putting a dancing kid on the wall. I ended up putting a whole bunch of things on like various different walls in the department, in the computer science department at Cornell. And ever after that, I could not walk by those same walls without feeling empty. It's like, where's the dancing kid? I put him there, right? That's my artwork. And every time I see the blank wall, I'm like, I gotta get the headset on. So this AR thing is going to be very, very big for sure. But I think the hardware is just not there yet. Have you had a chance to play with the latest Apple gear? Has it come
Not
through
yet.
your?
Not yet. I've been watching videos and I'm like, should I just do it and just for the sake of? But yeah, we'll see. I'm in a remote area, but once I travel, I'll pick. I'll most likely pick one up. I just for the culture, just to play around
Yeah,
with it and see. I do
yeah.
believe that there's opportunities, and it's good to like at least maybe not buy one, but play around and understand where it can go.
Yeah, that's one of my to-do things this weekend. I'm gonna walk into an Apple store and play with the Vision Pro. So, but let's get back to you and your story. So you have a very interesting background. Where'd you grow up? And so what's the cultural arc that took you to NFTs in the end? Are we gonna broach that topic, or is it too personal?
No, yeah, we can talk about it. So I grew up in Toronto and I was cutting hair. I started in a Jamaican barbershop. And so I learned how to read the room really quick. It wasn't like, it was just one of those, like I was like they would literally just call me white boy, right? They would call in and be like, I want the white boy to cut me, you know? So I would go learning patois a little here and there, jerk chicken, Jamaica, being like understanding the culture and just being immersed in something completely new to me.
Mhm.
And that was fun. And then I realized it's like each one of those is like a pocket. And then I think what really got me excited about NFTs was when it's like that nature of connecting, right? It's like it felt like its own barbershop. It felt like this tribe. And for me, I would cut people's hair. I worked my way all the way up to cutting. I had a spot on Lakeshore. I opened my own barbershop, and my goal was like it's going to be like a very white glove, take care of the people. So like if you're coming to get a haircut, I would call you and be like, listen, I'm 3 minutes late, or I'd send you a text because I want to be right on time. I got to cut a lot of like C-suite guys, celebs towards the end, and then I would just give off a lot of my clients to a bunch of my other barbers. And so the conversations were really cool. They were very around family. What are you doing after? What drives you? And I was like, and then, or if I'm like someone just, psychiatrist, it's like they have all these problems. So I started to learn a lot about just like helping people. Like they'll vent to me about their life. I would go home and I would research it. Like, okay, maybe I can help them out. And then I learned really quick that it's not about solving their problems. It's more so just giving the space for them to just like feel cool. Like, okay, I'm taking a break. It's like a relief. I'm going to get a haircut and I'm going to leave feeling better. I look better. I feel better. And so it's like, how do you emulate that into, what we're doing? And so, one more point about the NFT side is some of my biggest guys, I'll message them personally and say, hey, do you want to hop on a call? I'll give you a little rundown of what's going on. And it means so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just do that as much as possible. And of course, balance real life with that too. Because sometimes
How do you do that? How do you do that? Hang on, I have to step in because this is one of the hardest questions I get, and I always mumble my way through my answer because I don't have a good answer. So the work-life balance question: how do you balance those two things? My answer is, I don't really. I'm not very good at this. That's my real answer. But I want to hear yours. How do you keep the two things in check?
No, I agree. And to be honest, like I'm grateful to be in the position that I'm in. And when I get into something that inspires me, I just fully immerse myself. So like there is no like, and I have a coach that was telling me, he's like, look, if you're gonna overwork, just make sure you rest a suitable amount because you can't do that for a long time because you're just gonna burn out and then you're wasting that energy that you could just be resting anyways and just enjoying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just like whatever you're doing, it's like just do the most thing that the thing that gives you the most level of excitement. And I just follow that, and then it's like, okay, take a little break. Maybe I'll disconnect. I'll play a little bit of like video games or something. But even that is like probably not the healthiest. But one thing that really helped me in terms of just like, like calming is I do ice baths in the morning. I don't know if you've
That's
done one or not.
crazy. That's totally nuts. And you are the second founder I'm talking to. In fact, the second in a row. Who does this whole? So you do the whole Wim Hof ice bath thing?
Yeah. So at first, when I first did it, it was just you're in the bath and it's like you're looking at the timer and it's like 20 seconds. You're like, I need to get out. I need to get out. And now that I'm used to it, I just take a couple of deep breaths and then just right in. And then the trick is just to even your breath and like learning that you can do that in everything, right? When you're in the middle of you're just about to jump on something or talk in front of a crowd of thousands of people, you just do that same. I got this. And so it trains your brain in a weird way, not just your body just freezing itself, but yeah, it's like it's a very mental game.
So how does this work logistically? So I can imagine you doing this in Toronto, but anywhere else, how do you do this? Where's the
So
ice? Where's the bath?
yeah,
How does this work?
so you know those like meat freezers, the top freezers?
Yeah.
So I literally my pops like siliconed all the inside of it, and then we bought like a pump, like a pool pump, and
Uh,
then like a mini one, and then just like an ozone, and it's on a timer. So and as soon as the temperature gets a certain thing, it just turns the freezer back on. So it's always the same. I clean it, I
amazing.
just drain it, and then I just open the top, turn the switch because I don't want to get electrocuted, and
Yeah.
I go in.
Please don't get electrocuted. This is crazy. I look with great respect at everyone who does that Wim Hof thing. I've tried the cold shower in the morning. It's just so incredibly uncomfortable. You're like, what the hell would I do this to myself for? But I totally hear you on the breathing side. So I still do. I used to dive. I used to free dive. It's a lot of holding your breath and controlling your inner processes, and it's very meditative for me. I would go on these like 3-4 hour, diving, whatever excursions, and just hold your breath and dive and hold your breath and come up, and it really calms you down. And that's one of the main things that I found for dealing with stress is controlling your breath, controlling your inner processes, being able to focus and narrow. But cool. Okay, so we're now doing this Wim Hof thing. Dokyo is growing. Where do you see Dokyo? So you've got all of your mechanisms in place for dealing with stress. You've got your setup for growing the community. Where do you want it to go? What's success for you? Down the line.
Yeah, so I would say success is we launch multiple products that make it out, because if you look at the space, there's not many projects that really break through. It's a
No.
lot of the same, and I
Yeah.
would say, yeah, like launching products that don't look like they're related at all. We're just like a fun think tank where our community just keeps with our ideas. And as soon as you get one really good one, you build that credibility. And I would say having that like passport type of level of access and just keep taking care of whoever's involved. So I would say on a high level, yeah, it's like one of the ideas I had recently was imagine this passport where like this becomes my Gunzilla profile and it's
Mhm.
connected to this NFT that's my character. And
Yeah.
then I build up all these tools, everything I have, and then it's like I can now go and just be like, hey, here's my profile. You want to start the new game? This is what I've done. This is what it's worth. And so like little ideas and integrating the tech in that way, just to really, I think gaming is VR, AR. I think these are all, it's the
They're all
future. It's
coming.
just how is it gonna? And I'm not gonna lie, man. There's some things I have zero clue, but I'm just being as receptive as possible. Where it's like, okay, that's like I like the VTubing. There's something about it.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. So
Yeah.
I read this thing about sushi, right? I don't know how true it is. Maybe it's just some fancy story. So this one guy, sushi was never popular in the States, right? They had it in Asia, and then they brought it over, and in California, it's because they used to wrap the seaweed on the outside, and it was raw fish, and it just wasn't accepted culturally. And from my understanding, there was this one place in California that they wrapped the rice on the outside and they put like cooked chicken on the inside. And that like ended up creating this like boom where it's like, whoa, this is like tasty. And then they
Mhm.
actually tried the raw one and they're like, this is really good too.
Mhm.
So I think there's just going to be that like aha moment where someone's going to figure it out. Like this is why it works and this is how it works. And the
Mhm.
tech will be able to sustain it. And then it's like all of a sudden just going to be like, boom, open.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's like everything in life. There are a bunch of factors that have to just all coincide for really great success, right? You need to have the audience mentally ready for the next leap. You need to have the audience sort of that has made enough money, so to speak, or has enough disposable income to be able to experiment with things. So we have to be at the right point in the cycle, in the macro cycle. And of course, all the tooling has to be there under you. And then, of course, it's up to you to build the rest of the success. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the tooling also. So you launched on Hyperspace, right?
Yeah.
And what was your experience with it? How did that go? And what role does the underlying marketplace play in the success of a good NFT series?
Yeah. So Hyperspace, what they did was they relieved us having to do anything tech related. where it's convenient, but at the same time, I guess it would be great to have like a CTO that's like helping, like that's very forward thinking, where it's like, okay, we can recreate this, that. So I would say the role that they play is important in terms of just other chains being familiar with that style of marketplace because they're used to it. So that onboarding process was a little easier because it wasn't like they had to learn something new. So I would say that was one variable, and the exposure, and of course we have incentives and other things, and that helped a lot, right? Like you have just the way the space works, or is like, oh wow, like you're topping charts. Why? All of a sudden, I'll give you a perspective of it. Is like we launched and we went under mints, right? We were like half the price of what it cost. And of course we launched very low. AVAX was close to like its bottom, and we were dealing with all the heat of that. And I remember one whole year I was talking to people. So as soon as we launch and it goes down, everyone starts calling me. Everyone's on the like, hey, are you gonna like leave? If you do, just let me know. Like people that were like, oh, I'm so excited. And then we had like all these partnerships and opportunities. Everything was like, okay, can't touch these guys, whatever. Then all the incentive structures, the market pumped, everything happened at the same time. Within like 5 days to a week, everyone was like, dude, I believed in you all along. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Let's work. Let's do this. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay. So the perception, nothing has changed. The whole idea was always the same. It's just the lens at which it was looked at was completely different. And I think that's what really helped. And it did. I can't say that it was us and it was the art. It was an accumulation of everything. But I think the perceived value ultimately is what drives it as of right now. Will it change in the future? Maybe. But for now, it's like, yeah, it does matter. The price does matter. Let's be real.
No, price action begets more price action. That's I think universally true, and that's one of the things that makes this space what we would call power law, right? So that's why there are only a few winners and a whole bunch of middling ones and so on, because it is a game. If you ask me, trading NFTs is a game of trying to figure out where the masses are going to go. That's why it's challenging. That's why people find it fun. That's why the people who are best at it are the ones who have their ear closest to the ground. So it's really a game of, I feel so connected to where sort of cool people are that I think I can predict what they will be into. And that's really the NFT game. It's a fun game. So let's see, two last questions for you. If you had to go back, or if you could go back and do things differently with Dokyo, what would you change? If anything.
I wouldn't change anything because I think everything I learned for a reason. I would most likely change when it came to sourcing people out, getting like multiple quotes. Like I was just so ecstatic, and I'm like, yeah. I would just slow things down because I was like, when everything's happening at the same time, you just want to get things done. And I would say there's no rush, and it's like, even though yes, there is slightly pressure for whatever, it happens in due time. So I would say, yeah, I would just center myself more often. But other than that, I learned a lot of lessons. And so and it was a big aha moment, because it's like once you're you can advise as much as you want, but when you start your own thing, you learn so much about, like, it's your baby, right? And you're going through the motions, and you're learning about people and the way that they treat you correlated to what you're doing. And then so it's like it's now you're in the arena, it's like you have the responsibility. The more successful it gets, the more pressure I feel. And then if it wasn't successful, I still feel pressure. So it's like you're entering this world, and you better have courage. And I think that's like why it's like perfectly for that brand.
Oh, that's a very good tie back to the brand. So what are these lessons that you would what are some of them that you would want to pass on to the next set of founders that come after you?
I would say, yeah, that's an amazing question. So I would say, like, play in the hobby, like that you truly feel, and like, you don't do it for a specific reason. So one of them was like, we went to, like, I love Japan. I watch anime. There's something about the hive mind that just fascinates me, where everybody's on one side of the escalator. They take care of each other. They had this like study where the guy just opens his briefcase with a bunch of papers, and they see how fast everybody around them helps. It was like ridiculous. Like, everyone's like, oh, and so I think, like, there's this level of hospitality that and then I'm like, I have to go there. And so my first trip there, my friend took us around, and that was when we shot that video with the vending machines that kept switching.
Oh, okay.
And I was just a kid, and I was like, wow, like, and we had this video where they were going to record me with headphones. I was walking down the street, and then the whole video was like he was behind me, and then I turned around and I looked at him. I'm like, this is lame, man. I'm not feeling this at all. He's like, same. He's like, I'm like, okay, let's go to the coffee shop. Let's brainstorm a little bit. And we're like, man, there's something about the vending machines. It's just so convenient. They're everywhere, and they're there when you need them. I'm like, and it feels like a portal. Let's just record. And so the energy that we had being very enthusiastic went into the go-to-market videos. All the love and like appreciation went into each thing, and people felt it when they saw it. So that first video, it went like semi-viral.
Yeah.
It's and everyone thought we were a game. Someone thought they didn't know what we were. And as soon as they found out we were an NFT, the views just went, okay, now I'm operating on expert hard mode.
Yeah, that happens. I just watched a movie. I watched Beekeeper, and all the bad guys were into NFTs. So what's maybe that's I'm done asking questions, but I'm curious, what's up with the NFT perception in the sort of the wide world out there, and how do we fix it?
Yeah, I think it's because it's such a attention economy that it's like the whole world's an attention economy, but then you get into NFTs, it's like you were saying earlier, it's literally sentiment trading. Like you're trading like the emotions, but on top of it, how much someone feels attached to something. Yeah. And I think in the last cycle, like Bored Ape Yacht Club, and like they had that whole cycle where they started getting celebrities in the mainstream in. And then if you look at it like from a perspective of them, they became exit liquidity. It became very easy money for a guy to be like, let me use your art, let me take the money. And so it left a bad taste in majority of people, right? And so there is ways to get back, and it's empowering, but it's like, it's not regulated. So it's like so many, and I'm not saying I want it, or I don't know what the whole process would look like. I just think that once you start to have proper ways that things get used, and then people are like, oh, okay. And the right framework where, okay, this one artist maybe becomes an educator and starts to like onboard his whole audience. It's just a matter of time before it becomes accepted. But yeah, from a mainstream standpoint, there's like so many weird rumors where it's like they hurt the environment. It's
that's old. I think that's because of Ethereum 1. So
yeah.
when NFTs were going big on Ethereum, Ethereum was still using proof of work, and the amount of energy they used to create a block was like insane. Was maybe 10,000 times higher than the amount of energy we used. So we used on Avalanche. So that I know, I spoke to Refik, for example, Refik Anadol. I don't know if you know this fellow, but he is probably the top generative art person. And he was saying that he just won't be able to get into many galleries if he ever mints on a proof of work chain. You just can't. Like you can't go to a European gallery and say, I minted these NFTs, and they'll just be like, you just literally cannot walk in through the door anymore. So the invention of efficient blockchains was actually absolutely an enabler for getting people with sensibilities, people who care about the environment to be on chain. So that's, I think, I'm really glad that happened. I'm glad Ethereum also moved on to proof of stake. It's healthier for them. It's healthier for their economics. They don't have to burn and give as many tokens to miners. Anyway, I can go on. You triggered a technical rant, so
I'm curious. Speaking of technical, so you were a professor, and in this process, you're learning, you're adapting. You see this tech. What was the moment where you're like, "Whoa, it's time to put this into motion and create this. This is my baby. Like, how do I where?"
Oh, that's easy. So I mean, I'll tell you exactly how it happened for me. I always thought that this area was going to explode. I was doing this way before anybody. I built a system called Karma in 2002. It was published in 2003. So that's part of the record that anyone can check. And if you read the paper, it's got proof of work minting in it. So I was doing Bitcoiny stuff way before Bitcoin. So did Satoshi improve upon what I did in Karma? Absolutely, and in a very significant manner. But I was always in this space ever since I was a young assistant professor. I always thought we should build self-organizing systems. They should be open to all. I don't want to feel like I felt when I was a grad student, which is there's this finance universe, and I cannot connect. I can't have a seat at the table. $150,000 just to have an API feed. That's ridiculous. That should be for free, as it is. The Avalanche APIs are free for anyone to use. So those were the values that attracted me, building open systems where anyone can compete on an equal footing. That was the thing that attracted me. But then when I read the Bitcoin paper, I thought, oh, this is brilliant, except he's making claims that I don't think are true. So, we kind of had some fun with it. Then I was like, I'm going to be in this area. I'm going to do research. There are a lot of questions that these folks don't know the answer to that I think I can find the answers to. And so I was like, okay, well, we're going to look at scalability. We're going to look at decentralization and how to get more of it. We're going to look at security of coins at rest and so on and so forth. So those were all the things I worked on. And at some point, it became clear that, hey, the world at large doesn't know how to build proper proof of stake systems. They maybe can do engineering optimizations. They can maybe take the plugs out and, go downhill really fast and maybe build something fast that works on a good day, but they don't know how to build robust, fast systems. And someone has to show them that this area isn't just being invented by Satoshi. There's a lot of academic work behind it. And I will bring in what my fellow academics know, as well as I'll bring in my own expertise, and we'll build some new stuff. So that's how I got into where I am. It was a super fun experience. So I don't know that there was an aha moment for me. At some point, though, I did say this. I was like, this Avalanche thing is so big that I can't let other people run with it. They're going to screw it up. I have to be there to make sure that it's implemented properly. And that was an aha moment. And the rest is history. I think it worked out fairly well for us. And, we managed to bring something amazing into the world.
That's an incredible story. I think it's interesting, too, about how it's like one thing led to another. And now you're like, what it reminds me of? It's like you're like the grandpa at the table. And like no one at the family would be there unless you had like everybody that's like, like it's like thanks, man, because of you all of this exists.
No, it's not. I wouldn't claim it. I wouldn't. No, I'm a humble person. The table would still be around. There'd be more scammers at it, I think, and it would use crappier technology. But it would still be around. But no, I would like to think that I'm still hip. This is like the thing with grandpas.
No, you're not a grandpa. You're not a grandpa. Bad analogy.
I'm not that old. Not that old. Although it's at times it feels like the space does age you. And it does feel like I've been around for a very long time. The space has only been around, for 11 years? So it's not that long.
Yeah, I would say the last 3 years have felt like 10 plus for me, at least. It's just the speed at which things move. Yeah,
you've seen that meme, right? The white-haired guy with the white beard. He's like, who says crypto ages you fast? I'm 23 and I feel great. So
I agree.
That does happen. So, okay, on that note, shall we? We're over time, but this was so much fun getting to understand sort of what drives Dokyo, but much more importantly, what drives you. And it sounds like we're also looking forward to a full pipeline of exciting other projects that are coming in future months, years. Well, what's the timeline?
Yeah, so we're working on one right now. It's we had 4 workshops with the community. And we are, liquid death. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Water?
Yes.
So we're doing something similar with noodles.
Okay.
So we don't know if it's going to be this specific name, but calling it nudes. And we're looking at lanes to have fun with it. So just one way of just completely detaching, but still having maybe a potential where the people that pitched in can help contribute to it. And so we'll have some fun with that and see if it makes sense.
Cool. And if people are excited about Dokyos, about Newts, about Brando in general, where do they go? Where shall we direct them?
Yeah, so you can go to the Dokyo World's Twitter. My personal Twitter is 0xbrando, and the website is being built and it's coming soon. So that'll have everything. And we have a Discord community as well, as said Dokyo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brando, for sharing your time with us, for getting to see, letting us see a glimpse of who you are, how you think, and so on. And for everyone else, thank you for hanging out with us. And I hope that you'll follow up on Brando's next new projects, as well as take a look at Dokyo's. They are on Hyperspace, and I think they are maybe on multiple marketplaces besides Hyperspace as well, too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So thank you so much, Brando. Thank you for making the time, and thank you everyone for coming on board. And I'll hope to see you on chain.